You were never meant to see clearly, not because you're broken, but because the world taught you to see with someone else's eyes. Since the beginning, they've told you to search for truth out there, in books, in doctrines, in gurus, in cosmic signs. But what if the real illusion was never outside of you? What if the distortion was planted where you'd least expect to look, inside your own perception? You meditate, journal, align your chakras, visualize, affirm, repeat. You've tried it all. But still, there's this fog, this feeling that something isn't quite clicking, that something deep inside is still hidden behind a wall you can't describe. The problem is, you've been looking for clarity on a screen covered in fingerprints. You've been seeking light while a veil lives in your lens. And that veil, it's not spiritual, not magical, not mystical. It's neurological, emotional. It's subtle, silent, and trained into you. You were never asked to build it. You were simply taught never to question it. Imagine trying to clean a window obsessively, only to realize the dirt isn't on the glass, it's on your glasses. You wipe and polish and scrub and realign, but the distortion remains. That's how most of us live. We chase clarity in the world, without realizing the filter sits behind our own eyes. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The veil is not some divine punishment. It's not karma. It's not evil. It's conditioning, psychological, an inherited filter of survival and belonging. And it doesn't scream, it whispers, through thoughts that sound like yours, but were never born in you. But here's the trap. Even when you start to suspect there's something blocking your clarity, you still don't know how to remove it. Because how do you dismantle something that lives inside the way you see? How do you break a spell you didn't know was cast? This is where most people get lost. Not because they aren't spiritual enough, but because they've been spiritualized into avoidance, into rituals without reflection, into healing without integration, into alignment without embodiment. And so the veil stays. But there's a path, not one of effort, but of awareness, not of trying harder, but of looking deeper. In this video, we're not going to talk about the veil as a metaphor. We're going to trace it in your brain, in your nervous system, in your inherited beliefs, and then, gently, begin to dissolve it, not with force, but with presence. We'll explore why this veil was built into you in the first place. We'll look at how your mind edits truth in real time. We'll uncover how emotions create fog, how distraction blinds your inner sight, and how even spirituality itself can become another mask. We'll go step by step into the psychology of your inner blocks and how to begin transmuting them into clarity, coherence, and inner sovereignty. If this theme calls to something inside of you, if you felt the weight of this veil without knowing how to name it, then walk with me. Don't just watch this video, feel it. Let it speak to the part of you that's always known. And if this message stirs something real within you, subscribe now. Stay with me in this discovery. Don't let this moment go unnoticed, because what's about to be revealed might change the way you see everything. The invisible design. It didn't start with you. The veil you carry was designed long before you knew what to call it. This isn't about blame. It's about recognition. Because what you can name, you can begin to release. The veil isn't a punishment. It's a pattern. A web of emotional survival codes built over time by trauma, culture, and the need to belong. You weren't born with it, but you were born into it. From your earliest years, you were shaped to disconnect from your inner truth, not out of malice, but because the world needed you to fit into roles, into rules, into systems, family, religion, school, society, all of them offering safety, but at a cost, and the cost was clarity. Let me explain. Every time you silenced your curiosity to avoid punishment, the veil grew. Every time you played small to be accepted, it thickened. Every time you hid your sadness, your anger, your intuition, a new layer wrapped around your inner vision. Until one day, you called the veil me. But what if the most powerful truth was hiding where you never thought to look? Here's the process. The brain records pain, and in that pain it builds strategies. But those strategies become identities. Identities you didn't choose. You learn to call suppression strength. You learn to call compliance love. You learn to survive by forgetting your original signal. Let me give you an example. Imagine a child who laughs loudly in joy until someone says, "That's too much." The child shrinks, not just in voice, but in spirit. Now imagine that moment repeating, again and again, in subtle ways. That child grows up with a veil called being polite. But beneath it, the soul is still screaming to be seen. You've seen it before, you just didn't know how to read it. The veil isn't mystical, it's memory. And the reason you still can't see clearly is because the veil feels like you. It's familiar. It's the emotional camouflage you've worn so long, you forgot you had it on. Pause for a moment. Breathe. And if you feel safe to do so, close your eyes and ask yourself, what belief have I carried for years and that no longer fits who I'm becoming? You might hear an answer. You might feel a resistance. Either way, you've just touched the veil. And if something stirred inside you right now, leave a word in the comments to solidify what moved through you. Maybe it's release, maybe it's clarity, maybe it's truth. Whatever it is, let it be your imprint in this moment. Let it echo back to you. And now, we go even deeper into the architecture of perception. We'll explore how your brain, quite literally, edits reality before you even realize it, and how what you think is real might just be memory on repeat. The truth filter. What if most of what you call truth is just well-rehearsed memory? There's a hidden mechanism behind your eyes, a biological editor working in real time. It decides what you notice, what you ignore, and what you call reality. But here's the secret. It's not choosing based on truth. It's choosing based on what's familiar. Bruce Lipton explains it clearly. 95% of your perception is filtered through your subconscious. That means you're not seeing the world as it is, and you're seeing it as you've been trained to. And that training? It wasn't built in moments of peace. It was built in moments of protection. Let me give you a real-world image. Imagine walking into a room where nothing is actually wrong, but your body tightens, your breath shortens, your shoulders curl in. Why? Because something in that space feels like an old threat. Not because it's real now, but because your nervous system remembers. You feel not good enough, even when you're loved. You feel unsafe, even when you're protected. You feel behind, even when you're exactly where you need to be. That's not reality. That's a projection, and the projector is inside you. Here's the process. Your brain, constantly scanning for patterns, overlays the present with images of the past. It's like walking through today with yesterday's shadows taped to your eyes. And the deeper part? You trust those shadows because they feel like home. Pause now. Not in your mind, in your body. Let your awareness sink into your chest, your stomach, your jaw. Is there tension you didn't know was there? Is there a belief playing in the background, like a hum you've never noticed until now? Let me give you an example. Maybe you assume that silence means rejection, or that slowing down means failure. These are not truths. These are old, emotional algorithms running quietly in the dark. And once you see that, everything changes. You begin to ask a deeper question. Is this true? Or is this programming? That one question, repeated gently throughout your day, becomes a blade of clarity, a soft, spiritual rebellion, a way to re-enter your life with open eyes and a rewired heart. Let's go further. Because next, we're going to explore how suppressed emotions don't just live in your memories. They cloud your inner sky. We'll talk about the emotional fog, the body's invisible language, and how feeling lost is often a symptom of not what you're missing, but what you've locked away. Emotional camouflage. You're not lost. You're buried. Not under failure, not under confusion, but under years of unfelt emotions, stacked layer by layer, like fog in your inner sky. Most people don't lack vision, they lack emotional clarity. And that lack becomes a veil, not because they can't see, but because they've been trained to not feel. You were taught to control your emotions, to be strong, to stay calm, to move on. But strength without feeling becomes numbness. And numbness? It's the perfect environment for the veil to grow. Let me give you an image. It's like trying to find the shore while you're drowning in a lake. You look around, but everything's murky. The panic rises. The more you resist the water, the deeper you sink. That's what unprocessed emotion does. It creates a storm beneath still waters, and you don't know you're in it, until you can't breathe. But what if clarity isn't something you find, but something you feel? Here's the process. Emotions are not enemies. They're messengers. When ignored, they don't disappear. They disguise themselves as confusion, fatigue, numbness, anxiety. And you start thinking, I'm lost. But you're not. You're carrying too much noise to hear your own inner direction. Pause for a moment. Right now. If you feel safe, close your eyes and scan your body. Not with judgment, with curiosity. Where is the tension hiding? Maybe your chest feels heavy. Maybe your throat is tight. Maybe you've been clenching your jaw for years without noticing. Don't try to fix it. Just notice it. That noticing is the beginning of dissolving the veil. Let me explain. When you give space to a feeling without trying to change it, it reveals its real shape. Sadness might show you a memory you buried. Anger might point to a boundary you forgot to draw. Fear might remind you of the part of you that still needs your protection. You've seen this before, in the way your body reacts before your thoughts catch up. That's not irrational. That's intelligence. That's the body remembering what the mind tried to forget. But here's the twist. Most people will do anything to avoid feeling this truth. They'll meditate to escape, work to distract, scroll to disconnect. That's why the veil persists, not because it's powerful, but because it's protected. Now we go deeper. Because what if the very structure of your daily life and your attention, your habits, your digital world is designed to keep you in this fog? We'll explore how modern distractions, especially digital ones, don't just waste time. They fracture awareness. They sever the connection to your inner world. We'll break down how dopamine hijacks your brain's ability to see, feel, and awaken. Dopamine and distraction. You were never meant to be this distracted, but the modern world runs on your attention, not your awakening. In ancient temples, silence was sacred. Stillness was power. In today's world, stillness feels like failure. If you're not responding, scrolling, achieving, consuming, are you even alive? Let me explain. Your brain is a pattern-seeking machine, and dopamine? It's the chemical currency of distraction. Every ping, every scroll, every tiny reward reinforces a loop, not of clarity, but of fragmentation. Dr. Joe Dispenza puts it simply, the brain addicted to stimuli cannot access deep awareness. And that's the trap. You think you're staying informed, you think you're staying connected, but what you're really doing is keeping the veil intact, because a fractured mind can't see clearly, and a fragmented field can't feel deeply. Here's the process. Every time you get that little digital hit, a like, a message, a headline, your nervous system jolts. Tiny bursts of excitement followed by emptiness. And without realizing it, you start needing those hits just to feel normal. But what's normal is actually a numbed baseline of disconnection. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're sitting in silence and your mind reaches for your phone, not because there's something urgent, but because silence now feels uncomfortable. That's not random. That's programming. That's dopamine rewiring your perception of presence. Pause for a moment. What happens inside you when the screen goes dark? Is it calm? Or is it restlessness? Is it relief? Or is it the beginning of a quiet panic? That reaction, whatever it is a signal. It's not about cutting off the world. It's about reclaiming your field, your frequency, your ability to feel something longer than a few seconds. Let me offer you this. What if you took 24 hours? Not to punish yourself, not as a challenge, but as a sacred detox of attention. No scrolling, no jumping between tabs, no checking just to check. Just space, silence, slowness, maybe even a notebook, a walk, a long exhale, not because you should, but because the veil thins in stillness. And sometimes, what's most hidden, only whispers when the world goes quiet. Now let's take this one step further. Because even when you disconnect from the noise, there's still another layer, a more seductive one that looks like awakening, but isn't. Now we'll explore how spirituality itself, the books, the crystals, the rituals, can become yet another veil. A beautiful distraction that masks what you're afraid to truly face, your own unfiltered truth, the illusion of progress. Not every light is a signal of awakening. Some are just softer illusions. The spiritual path has become crowded, not with seekers but with substitutes. Symbols, practices, books, crystals, affirmations, each one holding the potential to guide, yet so easily turned into ornaments that decorate the veil instead of removing it. It's a subtle shift, almost imperceptible at first. You begin seeking answers not inside you, but in tools, in rituals, in words spoken by others. And while those things can support you, they can never replace your embodiment. Edgar Cayce warned, knowledge without embodiment becomes deception, not deception of others, but of self, because there's comfort in learning. There's control in memorizing spiritual principles. But applying them, living them through shadow, through heartbreak, through resistance, that's the initiation most avoid. That's where the real veil begins to dissolve. Let me give you a modern metaphor. Imagine a house on fire. Instead of extinguishing the flames, you redecorate the living room. You burn sage in the corners, place crystals on the windowsill, hang sacred symbols on the wall. And for a moment, it feels like peace. But the fire still spreads, quietly, underneath it all. That's what happens when spirituality becomes performance. You're dressing up the chaos. You're painting the cage. But what if the next stage of your evolution requires you to burn what you once called progress? Let's go deeper. This isn't a rejection of tools. It's a remembrance of what they were always meant to be. Pointers, not prisons. A crystal is not your clarity. A mantra is not your identity. A ritual is not your reality. These are doors, but only you can choose to walk through them. You've seen this pattern before. Maybe you read the books, said the affirmations, went to the workshops, and still something felt missing. That's not failure. That's your soul telling you, you've gathered enough. Now, live it. And that transition, from knowing to embodying, it can feel like death. A death of the seeker identity. A death of the comfort that comes from endlessly preparing, endlessly consuming, endlessly seeking. Pause for a moment and breathe. Ask yourself gently, where am I still hiding behind the appearance of awakening? You don't need to shame the answer. Just notice it. That noticing is sacred. That awareness is the match that lights transformation. And because you've made it this far in the journey, I want to thank you, truly, for your presence, your energy, and your willingness to look beyond the surface. If anything in this message has reflected a truth you've lived through, take a moment to share it in the comments. Not just for you, but for others walking this same path. Your voice may be the echo someone else needs to hear. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing to this channel. Join our community. Let's keep walking this path together, with honesty, with depth, and with each layer of illusion we release. Now let's keep going. Because even if you strip away the rituals, even if you clear the distractions and touch your buried emotions, there's still one more veil. One that often feels like alignment, but actually hides a powerful misalignment. The frequency from which you create your reality. Frequency error. You've been told you attract what you want. But the truth is more uncomfortable. You attract what you're aligned with, even if that alignment is unconscious. This is the veil most people never question, because it hides not in what you do, but in where you vibrate from when you do it. You can meditate every morning, visualize your future, speak your desires aloud, but if the emotional state behind those actions is fear, lack, or abandonment, then you're not manifesting change. You're amplifying the signal of what you're trying to escape. Let me explain. Energy doesn't speak English. It speaks frequency. And frequency isn't shaped by what you say. It's shaped by what you believe while you're saying it. If your nervous system is wired to expect disappointment, then even your most beautiful affirmation is wrapped in the vibration of disbelief. You've seen this play out. You ask for love, but it doesn't come. Not because you don't deserve it, but because the part of you asking is still vibrating in fear of rejection. You try to manifest peace, but your body is still bracing for chaos. You say you want abundance, but deep down, you still feel like it's not safe to receive. That's not failure. That's feedback. The universe isn't judging you, it's reflecting you. Pause for a moment. Breathe into your body, not into your thoughts. Place your hand gently on your heart. Now, speak aloud a desire that feels alive in you right now. Maybe it's connection, maybe it's clarity, maybe it's a shift in your path. As you say it, feel. Does your body relax? Or does it tighten? Does something open? Or does something resist? That's your real frequency. Not your words, not your goals, but that subtle embodied reaction, the vibration underneath the request. Let me give you an example. Imagine trying to tune into a radio station, but your dial is just a little off. You might hear fragments of the signal, but it's filled with static. That's how many people live. They're trying to receive love, peace, freedom, but their dial is still set to survival, fear, doubt, and so they manifest mixed results. Moments of clarity followed by confusion, progress followed by collapse, joy followed by shame. But what if the problem isn't what you're asking for, but the self you're asking as? Here's the shift. Manifestation is not about asking. It's about becoming. Not in some grand, performative way, but in the micro movements of coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and energy finally stop fighting each other and start singing in harmony. Now, let's keep going, because there's something even deeper. Sometimes the veil doesn't just distort your vision, it shakes your entire life, not as punishment, but as invitation. Chaos, collapse, loss, they're not signs of failure. They're signals. The soul's way of triggering the final veil. Inner rebellion. Before the breakthrough, there's often a breakdown. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means your soul is shaking loose what your mind has tried to keep in place. The veil doesn't always dissolve gently. Sometimes it rips through your life disguised as chaos, loss, confusion, endings, identity collapse. This is the part of awakening that no one glamorizes. The part where nothing makes sense. Where everything you used to rely on starts to fall apart. Your routines, your relationships, your roles. You try to hold on, but something deeper inside of you whispers, "This is no longer yours." Here's the process. Your soul isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to wake you. And sometimes the only way to make you pay attention is to let everything you're clinging to stop working. Not as punishment, but as protection. Because staying in what no longer serves you is more dangerous than losing it. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of an earthquake. On the surface, it seems destructive, but what it really does is reveal the weakness in the foundation. The cracks were already there, the shaking just made them visible. That's what the collapse does. It shows you what couldn't hold your truth anymore. But what if the shaking isn't something to fear, but something to listen to? Let me give you a real-world image. Maybe you lost a job you thought defined you. Maybe a relationship you poured your soul into suddenly ended. Maybe your health forced you to slow down after years of running on fumes. And in that moment, you felt abandoned by the universe. But what if that collapse was the soul stepping in where the ego was too loud? Pause for a moment. Think back to one time in your life when something fell apart, and later revealed a deeper layer of who you truly are. Maybe you didn't see it then. Maybe it still hurts. But inside that rupture was revelation. You've been conditioned to fear chaos, to call it failure, to pray it goes away. But what if your greatest alignment is hidden inside what you've been avoiding most? Next time something falls apart, ask, what illusion just broke? Because something always does. The illusion of control, the illusion of safety, the illusion of needing something outside of you to feel whole. And in that question, you'll find freedom. Let's move into the final stretch of this journey. We'll now bring together everything we've uncovered: the invisible programming, the emotional fog, the distraction matrix, the performance of spirituality, the mismatch of frequencies, and the breakdowns that reveal your truth, and integrate it into one clear message you can carry forward from this moment on. You were never blind. You were just looking through layers that were never yours to begin with. The veil isn't out there. It's in the filters you inherited, the wounds you protected, the beliefs you never questioned. It's in the stories that shaped you. Stories you didn't write, but learned to live inside. Stories that told you who you had to be in order to be safe, to be loved, to belong. But now, you're remembering. And remembering is the most sacred rebellion. Here's the truth. Your real clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from unlearning, from peeling back the patterns, from sitting with the emotions you once avoided, from disconnecting from the noise long enough to hear your soul whisper through the silence. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about reclaiming the version of you that existed before the veil. So, what can you do now? Begin by noticing your automatic reactions. Watch the stories you repeat in your head. Feel into the emotions that rise before your thoughts can catch them. These are not obstacles. These are the fingerprints of the veil. And by seeing them, really seeing them, you begin to remember what's underneath. Let's take it one step further. For the next 24 hours, detach from just one mental pattern that you know no longer serves you. Maybe it's the voice that says you're not ready. Maybe it's the belief that your worth comes from how much you do. Whatever it is, pause. Name it. Write it down. And know that the very act of witnessing it begins to dissolve its power. Say this with me, out loud or within. I see what I was never allowed to see. Let it echo inside you. Let it become more than words. Let it become a vibration, a shift, a remembering. And if you've made it this far, thank you, truly. Thank you for your energy, your presence, and for walking with me through this journey of clarity and reclamation. It means more than you know. If this message resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Just one word. A word that captures what moved through you. Maybe it's release, maybe it's sovereignty, maybe it's awakening. Leave your imprint here, and not just for you, but for those still finding their way. And if you haven't yet, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone you feel needs to remember. There's more to explore, more to uncover, more to awaken, together. Watch the next video. They programmed you to forget who you are, because that's where the veil began. And that's where the next layer dissolves. You don't need to fight what you feel, just learn how to read it. Because your energy is a language, and the universe is listening.